Welcome back. Right here in the studio with me is Nnadiume Awforkansi, and we are going to be looking at the role of legal practitioners in ensuring effective democratic process in Nigeria. He is a legal practitioner. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, my dear. Always put Ozo Nnadiume Awforkansi.
Okay.
Because
Pardon
Ozo
me.
is bigger than the barrister. So always put it there, yes.
Pardon me, Ozo
Thank
Nnadiume Awforkansi.
you.
Welcome.
Thank you, my dear,
Thank
for
you.
having me once more.
Okay. Now, before we go into the conversation proper, I'd like to pick your brain. How would you describe democracy in Nigeria today?
Well, democracy in Nigeria is government of the oppressors for the oppressed, in which the oppressor is a winner takes all. That's my own definition.
Oh, wow.
That's Nigerian democracy. Government of the oppressors for the oppressed, in which the oppressor is a winner takes all. That's our own democracy.
And why did you come up with that?
Yes, why I came up with it is that we tend to borrow a lot. We borrowed this, borrowed that. We have prime minister, that is a parliamentary system. That was before the war, in which Nigeria operated in regions, and that was borrowed from Britain. Now, after the war, Nigeria now want to take a radical move. They want presidential system. They now went and borrowed from the United States. They borrowed the system from the United States, but did not borrow the process from the United States. They just copied and pasted without looking into how do the United States that operate presidential system do their own. Now, in the United States, that's our own sample of democracy. If you contest for the office of governor of a state, after the contest and you win, first, hardly do you see anybody going to court, because that's where our discourse is going to center today. You will be sworn in, you will run your tenure. At the end of the tenure, you run a second tenure if you want. If the people like you, you continue. Now, secondly, if you are no more contesting after being a governor or being a president, you go back to where you've been working before. You don't become a millionaire after becoming governor of a state in the United States. You don't become a millionaire after becoming president of the United States. I'll give you two close instances which you should remember as a young girl. You might be hearing of Clinton. Clinton, after he ran for the office of president in United twice, and having served out his tenure, he wanted to dust his wig and gown. He's a lawyer like me, to continue his practice. But then he had a problem because of his scandal with Monica Lewinsky. So the American bar said he cannot practice law because he lied under oath. That was a major problem. Not because Americans hated him, but he lied under oath and told them they had no sexual relationship with Monica Lewinsky. Later he admitted he had. For that now, that was a dent. But after the opinion poll, they said the economy is okay, let him continue. He continued. So what did he do? He now went back to Harvard Law School as a teacher. But he retired last year. Now, Obama, you will remember Obama. Obama just finished his 2 terms again. Now, he went back to his NGO, which he has been running with his wife. In fact, Malia, the daughter of Obama, who is into social life, that is into, what do you call it? The one in Nollywood, film actor. That one is even richer than the father, who was a former president. But can nothing happen in Nigeria? That's why I defined the democracy the way I defined it. Now, let me also come back to the ones we can always see. Here in Nigeria, if a politically exposed person commits offense, me and you who are the common people that are oppressing, we even be there to protect him. We will be there to carry out placard in his support. Once they can pay us 10,000, lose 10,000 naira, we say, okay, if you need to go and carry anything, you go and protest for something you know is wrong. It's not done in the United States. Close example that's happening now. Natasha Akpoti accused Senate president of sexual harassment. Senate president set up a committee and was presiding over the committee. He is the one being accused. In law, it is not done. And now, they went and hired some people, rented a crowd, go and demonstrate in favor of Senate president. In fact, at the end of the day, they're even trying to recall the person they sexually harassed from the Senate. Now, where he was trying to come back to his village, where the people who voted for him were waiting for her, the government of the day said there will be no siren, there will be no convoy. The woman said, okay, no problem. She came by flight. They didn't remember that one. Because if they had, they could have said no fly zone. So you still saw people waiting for her, despite all those things. Now that is their own democracy. Such things cannot happen where we copied it from. That's why I define democracy in Nigeria as government of the oppressor for the oppressed, in which the oppressor is the winner that takes all. In fact, this definition, I coined it from here. I never even know you asked me this kind of question. So I will now adopt it as my permanent
so this
definition
is your
of
own definition
yes,
of
Nigerian democracy. Yes.
That's very interesting.
Yes.
So coming back to our topic of the day, what role do legal practitioners play when it comes to maintaining and improving Nigeria's democratic process?
Yes, you see, when we talk about process, you see, if we talk about Nigerian democracy as a whole, becomes a very big amorphous term. We are talking of the process. If you can, of course, you listen to P2B during the campaign last year or last 2 years. He has ever said it, that if you want to answer your excellency, the process that brought you into office must be excellent. It's not by rigging. So Nigerian democratic process and the role of lawyers. You see, it is only in Nigeria where every election will be laden with. In fact, as you are preparing for election, the courts are setting up a tribunal that will try election breaches. Now, the judge that is going to sit over that election is a lawyer before he became a judge. In fact, it was just a little shifting ground because you cannot bring a layman and say be a judge over a case. Now, the lawyer that is going to argue the case for is a lawyer. The person who is going to argue it against is a lawyer. What the laymen do for us is to give evidence, come to give evidence, to back up whatever claim they are talking about in any electoral challenge. The role of the lawyer cannot be overemphasized. It's not a rocket science anyway. It's not something I go to the film books. It is something I want to bring down to the knowledge of the ordinary layman. Everybody will understand where I'm going. Because if you want to become legalistic about it, many people who are listening to us or who are watching us this morning may not actually know some of the intricacies of what I'm trying to say. The role of the lawyer starts from drafting the law. That process we're talking about. The electoral law. That's where the lawyer's job starts. Senators will make the law. It is the lawyer that will draft it into a legal document that will become an act. Because every Senate, every House of Rep has legal department. They all have legal department. And every one of them have legal attaches or legal assistants. No senator that doesn't have a legal assistant. So it is for them, if you want to bring a bill, the lawyers will draft the bill for you as a senator. You go through it, but just give them the idea. So the process starts from there. If lawyers make good electoral laws, what happened in 2023 will not happen again. You order for avocado pear, they give you agbado. It will not happen again. How did it happen? They gave us agbado when we added for avocado pear. At the end of the day, the judiciary gave it a stamp of authority. And that was where I keep on saying, even as a lawyer of over 2 decades, I keep on saying it that the court has no business deciding who wins election or who doesn't win election. Let us say Nigeria has about 250 million people, or even 200 million people. Now, 180 of them come out to cast their vote. At the end of the day, they voted a candidate. Somebody out of his cleverness or mago now overturned the thing through the electoral umpire who is called INEC. Now you go to court. It doesn't lie in the mouth of 7 human beings to say that what the 250 million people did was wrong or right. It doesn't. Because that's why I say court has no business pronouncing winner or no winner of an election. Because court doesn't cast vote. In fact, if they are going to cast votes, it's only 7 votes they have. Those 7 judges in the panel in Supreme Court, they have only 7 votes.
But issues like this are always taken to the court. So how can they not rule a judgment over?
No, I'm coming to where I said something must have to happen in court. But I'm talking about them pronouncing Okeke is now the governor of Enugu State, or Okonkwo is now the governor. No, they don't. If you feel as a judge that there are breaches in the process that brought anybody into office, back to the electorate. Or that they may run. If they run it 1 million times, it's over to them. If they make another mistake, come back to you, and you see, you say, go back until you get it right. If you don't get it right, you appoint whoever is the head of the government there can be acting until the right thing is done. It was done in Kenya. It's not a rocket science. So. In Kenya, they conducted the election. The sitting president maneuvered the election. I say you won. They come to the Supreme Court. Supreme canceled it and told them to go back and do the proper thing. They went back, even though he still won. But they think now he became more careful. If the Supreme Court can, which he appointed, because he appointed the judges. That's all we're saying. Judges, lawyers, they have a very cardinal role to play in the Nigeria election process because it is them that will make the process credible. If the process is credible, me and you will be suffering what we are suffering now. Because it was because the judiciary gave them a stamp of authority and illegality committed by APC. That is why people are suffering today. If they have said, oh, no, INEC, look at what your law says. Your law says you shall transmit the election result from the polling booth to the IRF. You now didn't transmit it and say you had a glitch. If you had a glitch, no problem. Go back and conduct the election again. This one don't have glitch again, no? Because if you have glitch, we will sanction you. Or for even having glitch at all, there will be a law that if you don't transmit, you go to jail for at least up to 20, 30 years, or you pay a fine of over 1 billion as an INEC. So there's no way you can tell us that the result will be showing on the television. I'll be reading it out. So you who is watching will be comparing what you are saying on the TV with what I'm reading. You will now say the TV had a glitch. You will now suddenly read it manually when your law says otherwise. And then I tell us go to court. No, that's rubbish. So that's why I say the role of lawyers is incredible. But lawyers are indispensable, but it is in the process. It is for them now that this one is happening. Now you can see some youths now running around and saying they are going to INEC, they have prepared a new electoral law, they want to make the transmission of result to be mandatory. In fact, you don't even need to go to the IRF in Abuja. Wherever you are, after the casting of vote, call the result there. So that me and you who voted there will take our result and go home. So everybody have a result sheet. So that if you feel that some of your own was maneuvered and you are called for evidence, said yes, that day we snapped it with our phone. The signature of the electoral officer and polling class, they are there. I was there when he called the result. This is what they got in my polling booth 009 or Globe, Golo Ward 1 or Ward 2. That's what should be. And it is the law that will empower them to do that. But when there is no law, they keep on maneuvering these elections. And they keep on maneuvering it. And all of us will be suffering for it. So lawyers have a cardinal role to play.
So aside from drafting the law,
yes,
what other ways?
No, I started from the first way. The law, or the drafting law should have been the first. Okay. I started talking when I said the Supreme Court judges have no business declaring results of one or CAF 1. If there's a breach, go back. The people that vote the election are the voters, not the judges. Judges can only correct breaches of law in a electoral process. If there is a breach, you order them to go back and correct themselves. And you don't say because it has come. They say no. This one they are trying to say now, that before even you swear anybody in, that the result must be completed and court case must be completed. That one is also a good lineup for, a good applause for the lawyers. So, but above all, you cannot as a lawyer say, if you give me brief now to go and represent it, I say I will not give you, because I am a private lawyer, you pay me. But what I'm saying is that from this process, the process that will bring anybody into power, let the lawyers wake up now and help to correct it. We don't need to be docile about it. You make contributions. We know why Supreme Court said, now the other one was rules, the other one was law. Because what they said then was that, I think it was under section 60 of the Electoral Act, 60/5, where they said the Independent Electoral Commission shall conduct electronic voting. They then came down and said, under the sub, say, the method of transmitting and conducting that shall be as provided in the guideline by the commission. They now went home and created electoral rules. That's what they call rules for the conduct of the 2023 election rules. That rules was mandated from the law. Now they now said you have to transmit your result from the primary voters listing in after recorded in the Beavers to the IRF in Abuja. People were doing it after the election. Because this will happen my own crooked eyes in my own village. I went there because I don't promise anybody I will give him Enugu State vote. I can only promise you I will try to campaign for you in my own polling booth, or in my own ward, or in my own village. So every election is local. So at the end of the day, they transmitted the House of Senate. We were all there. Hey, they say the emperor clapped, the Senate don't go. They started to do over the battling with House of Rest. Hey, but House of Rest has gone. Hey, we clapped our hand. President, the boy, they'll try it, it won't go. They'll try it again. People started collecting tires, said that people want to re-elect, we want to burn them. And I said, don't burn anybody. Let us call other place to know whether it is universal. I called the next community. I'm from Oglo. I called the next community in my village. They said they're having problem with the issues with the transmitting the presidential results. What's going on? I called Enugu. They said they have not transmitted though. That is only the one voting center where they closed voting around 4 p.m. that succeeded in transmitting presidential result. One polling unit only. The rest who closed by, even at what you call dental clinic here, that has one of the greatest number of voters. I think there are about 20 to 30 polling units. So that people could not transmit. As at 11 in the night on that day, they were still battling with transmitting the presidential result. At the end of the day, everyone saw it was nationwide. So the one that came in around 4 p.m., INEC saw it and saw that P2B was winning. Said, how can this magic happen? That was why they switched up the time and said it was a glitch. They have not explained that glitch up to date. But Jambo, what do you call it? WAEC had a similar issue. Just this concluded WAEC. People wrote the exam by midnight. Jambo also had the same problem. But Jambo at least came out, apologized. We cried the television. WAEC own came out and apologized. But the INEC never apologized to Nigerians. I told us to go to court.
Well, do you think that the judiciary is still perceived as impartial when it comes to election disputes?
No. That's the other answer I'll give you. I don't need to hide it. I belong to that jurisdiction. Judiciary is not impartial. They are partial. They are not. If they are impartial, we will know. See, in law, there's something we say, we call it, this thing speaks for itself, res ipsa loquitur. And in justice, when you give judgment, you often say, justice must be seen to be, not only be seen, but be manifestly seen to be done. If you say you have gotten justice, and people cry home, you have delivered judgment, not justice. I'll give you one direct example. I'll give you life story examples. Hope Ozo Nnadiume came forth in Imo State during his own election period. He collected all the ballot papers he can see anywhere he can collect them, carried them to the Supreme Court with one police officer. And not minding that it didn't come from INEC. INEC has already declared Ihedioha as the winner. In fact, he has been in the office for almost 3 months before they gave that judgment or thereabout. And they say it's now Hope who came forth that came first. But who delivered the lead judgment was the present Chief Justice of Nigeria today, this woman now. She gave the lead judgment and say it is Hope Ozo Nnadiume who came forth that now came first. Nigeria thought they were joking. Lo and behold, Hope Ozo Nnadiume came down here to be sworn in. Well, Supreme Court, the last court. What then happened? The other group went to court to know whether the Supreme Court know what they are doing. When after telling the Supreme Court that they erred and what they did, judgment they gave was wrong, that they should revise themselves, because that's the only thing you can do in the Supreme Court. You can't go on another appeal again after Supreme Court. It is either for them to revise themselves. 5 judges sought on that application to revise themselves. 4 of them said if they revise themselves, everybody will come back to Supreme Court tomorrow and say, revise yourself, you made a mistake. They didn't want. One of them only, Justice sent to Sunweze, said it is possible for them to revise themselves. He gave his called dissenting judgment. He read that judgment for about 1 hour, 45 minutes, reading the judgment he wrote. After that, people started clapping inside Supreme Court. That is justice, that is judgment leading with justice. People started clapping, but nonetheless, it is still a minority judgment. The other 4 will still carry the day. That was why I hope he stayed there. But when was the after giving that judgment, people were, you don't clap in court. You don't even make noise in court. But in Supreme Court, people started clapping. And the police was trying to tell them, stop clapping. This is Supreme Court. Yeah, nobody was listening. Because whereas they gave judgment, laden with justice. And when you give that kind of judgment, anywhere you go, you say it is justice. You say how it is in your heart. So that's why I said the judiciary cannot be said to be impartial in election matters. Because I don't want to allege the one I cannot prove. Because if I tell you that Nigerian judiciary is like they had in the Caribbean in those old days, or highest bidder takes all, I won't prove it. But I'm telling you that there is a kind of judgment judiciary. Like, okay, another one that happened in Ezeago. Somebody, we cast our vote, we counted the vote. The young man from Labour Party won House of Assembly. The other person who lost the PDP went to court. Tribunal here told him, what are you doing in court? That this Labour young man won. They want an appeal. Appeal court did not know what to say. What they said was that a young man cannot read and write, and that was why they deprived him of the victory he won and returned the PDP man. So what type of judgment is that one? Is that one judgment, or is that one is justice, or that one is mechanical accuracy, or what? What do you call it? So that's why I say sometimes you don't know this judgment, but there are still a lot of parts. More than 80% of judges are still very decent too. Remember, those people who go to election petition are very few. Nigeria might have about 1 million judges, but those who go to election petition are not up to 200,000. So you can see that about 800,000 are still not to go. Before, it was people that appoint. Come and go to election tribunal. But today, they will bring form. If you want to go, fill it, so that if anything happens there, you are on your own. Judges who go to get that form, fill it and say they want to go to election tribunal. Two things are there. Then they are looking for something, or something is looking for them. So, yeah.
But what exactly is the problem? Because why is it that it seems as if some of these lawyers cannot hold public institutions accountable?
It's not for lawyers alone to hold public. I also hold you journalists responsible for not holding public institutions accountable. If you make the misdemeanors of a public officer public, make it in the news, interview people on the street, how do you see the administration of Peter Mba in Enugu State? You make opinion poll. You are not giving your judgment, but play the whole clip of what you have, what the people in the street said. People will now add two and two together and make up their mind.
But in this context, we are looking at the legal.
That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
In law, you don't even, unless you are a person interested, there's something called local standard. You don't just walk into the court and say, the governor is not performing. There are areas in Constitution, chapter 4 of the Constitution, that's under fundamental rights. Good education, right to life, right to this, right to they're all, but then there are some of them you cannot enforce in law. If you sue the president of Nigeria and say you have a right to free education, this law will tell you it's not justiciable. So it is only fundamental rights when it is breached by either authorities or police. That's when you can now sue. So to hold public officers accountable is not for lawyers alone. There must be a complainant or somebody who complains or a plaintiff in a suit who will brief a lawyer. Whether the lawyer is doing it free of charge or whether he's charging you money, that's where the lawyer now comes in. The lawyer, if he takes it on his own, say, I am, as Barrister Awforkansi, I want to take up this matter, that these people did this, do it. I can do that still. But then again, you also find out that iron does not sharpen itself. It needs another iron to sharpen it. You might go there out of anger of what the person did to you. You might be bringing in your personal sentiments into the matter you are prosecuting to hold the public officer accountable. I'll just give you a brief example before we round up. When Bulubulu was governor of Enugu State, there was a problem with Ip Man. We went to court, up to Supreme Court. A faction of Ip Man who were representing won. Up to Supreme Court. We came to Enugu here. We pulled the High Court bailiffs to go and enforce the judgment at Emene Depot here. We went to Emene. We enforced the judgment. We carried the man who won the election. Tabo, sit down here. This is your chair. He sat down. We go with our police. We entered the vehicle. As we were driving out, gunshots, like when there was Biafra war in that place, including the person we put in office, so everyone was camped for safety. Now, where do I bring public officer into it? We now discovered that the hand of the former governor was in making sure that the person who didn't win is retained in that office. I now went to the press in Edinburgh. I called all the pressmen. They came to my chambers. I gave press conference. I told them that the government is obeying Supreme Court's judgment. It was in all the news. Enugu State governor disobeyed Supreme Court judgment. They started looking for the lawyer who granted the interview. I called me. I went. The question they were asking me, about former governor. Why can't you? What these people you're talking to the press? But it was the press that even made that governor even start looking for who gave this interview. Because if they are not published, governor won't even know which lawyer is doing what. So, but at the end of the day, they don't have to resolve the matter because of the involvement of the press. That's why I said it is not the only lawyer that will hold the public office. But press own is even worse. Many of these governors, they are very much afraid of the press more than they are afraid of lawyers. I'm telling you very honestly. So the one you do on your own television, on your radio station, will give even more impact than the one the lawyer will do in the court alone. Only people in that court will hear it. But the one you do in this television, the whole world has to go to YouTube after this program or while this program is going on. We see what we are saying.
Yeah.
If you click it, you will know how many people have watched this program. But the one I did in Court 5, maybe that Court 5 has about 10 cases in the court list. And out of the 10 cases, about 5 will go on. The other has taken data and gone out before I start doing my own. The people in the court will be about 5 persons. How many will these 5 persons reach? But the reach of the press is stronger than the reach of the lawyer. If you know, you know.
Yes. And finally, before we let you go, now, you know, people often express frustration when with court rulings on some political matters. So now, how can we help restore public trust in the judiciary, particularly, especially when it comes to...
That's why I say what I'm saying.
Cases.
You see, we need to overhaul. You don't need to overhaul only INEC. You have to overhaul INEC, overhaul judiciary. In fact, overhaul even law enforcement agencies, because all these things work together. If you don't, if you want to get judges who will be judges who will go both judgment and justice, you involve all the stakeholders. That is not be that governor knows you as a lady who is a lawyer and gives your name to the National Judicial Council, make this man a lawyer, a judge, and you come to interview, you pass, you become a judge. No. We lawyers, just like judges know some of us who do good legal practice. That is also how we lawyers also know judges who are corrupt. And if I am a corrupt legal practitioner and I want to apply to be a judge, and my application is published and the MBA votes, and the law of Awforkansi is very corrupt as a lawyer, they can't vote me to be a judge. So the MBA should be involved in appointment of judges, not just telling them to recommend. No, let it be by voting. Let the judiciary also vote. Let the vote of the MBA be more. In fact, let it also be room for the public who are interested also participate in the voting. So it's not merely appointed. So if you want to be a judge, like we contest elections, apply. If you are shortlisted, that's the first stage. You have passed the hurdle. The second stage, we throw your name open. 21 days for criticism. They will write. After that, we'll go to vote. You see how we now start picking credible people as judges. Because there's no way you can bribe everybody who will vote for you to be a judge. It's difficult. MBA conducts elections. We vote with our phones. In fact, in the last election, I produced our famous Igwe. I voted around 11 p.m. the night on my bed. So, and as you are voting, you are seeing the vote counting to whoever you are voting for. Because we know all the contestants. They have talked to us. We know them one-on-one. So that's what should also happen to appointment of judges. So that confidence, he says, is being eroded, will be restored. Because if you keep on appointing the way we're appointing judges and magistrates, the problem will continue. Because every society produces its own kind of judiciary. So if Nigeria is corrupt, you can't expect judiciary to be sent. So whatever is there is what is in the society. So don't tell me judiciary is the last hope of the common man. It is not. Because the common man goes there, will be commit suicide. Because first, the common man will not even save money to pay a lawyer. At the end of the day, if you meet a judge that is corrupt, common man, if you can't pay a lawyer, how can you now pay a judge who is demanding bribe from you? So these things are neither here nor there. So the only thing, the process of, remember this, our topic is on process, whether electoral process, judicial process, the process of bringing anything determines if that process is defective, that system will be defective. It is happening everywhere in Nigeria. Process of you and no taking people, employing people in the job is who do you know? It is producing half-baked people who don't even know what to do. That's why people go to service, tell them, fill common attestation form in service. They can't fill it. And they are graduates who may have made even 2-1. The process of producing those graduates, because they are sorting their lecturers, was defective. So the graduate they produce will be defective. The process of recruiting civil servants, because it's IM, is defective. So the civil servant they produce will be defective. The process of employing lawyers is defective, because the lawyers we employ to become judges are who man no man, paddy. And the judges, the lawyers, the judges they produce will be defective. The process of electing our president is defective, because INEC will always have glitch and give us something we didn't bargain for. At the end of the day, the man that they will produce will be defective. So it is natural.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Ozo Nnadiume Awforkansi.
Thank you.
Lovely time with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me this morning.
Yes, and thank you all for staying with us on the morning program. Remember that every day is a day to grow and be better.
Save Nature TV. News in your pocket.